Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Sunrise on the Inside podcast, a space where we share inspiring interviews and stories from thoughtful leaders in business, health and wellness, entrepreneurship and sports. Here we talk about tools, habits, routines and tactics they use that help them feel calm, revived and rebalanced whenever they face challenges in life. I'm your host, Nico Estrella, a serial entrepreneur, former professional soccer player and co-founder of Waku. Hello everyone, welcome to the episode number 5 of the podcast. My guest today is Hannah Aylward, a certified holistic health coach, gut health expert, author of Recipes for a Healthy Gut, and the founder of Han. She helps women around the world overcome chronic digestive issues naturally, regain their energy, and feel at home in their bodies again. Hannah cuts through the overwhelming wellness noise and uses a science-backed, intuition-guided formula to help her clients transform their gut health. Hannah approaches health issues at the root cause level to get their clients real, sustainable results. In today's episode, we had a great conversation around how to identify if you have gut health issues and how to change your relationship with food and diet. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hannah, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, amazing, Hannah. I wanted to kickstart our conversation today. Actually, we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording the episode, but I know that you have regularly a program that's called Healing Guts and Shaking Butts. I love the name. So I am first really curious to know how did you started with that story, and what is it about for people that haven't heard about it before?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, if anyone knows me more personally, they know I'm like always dancing. I love music. I love dancing so much. I've been dancing since I was a little girl, and I would do it way more if I didn't also have to like work. Like it's like my heart and soul. I love singing and dancing. And it was my sister's 30th birthday, and it was a bunch of our friends together in a home in upstate New York. And after we get chatting, we find out, that a lot of people are kind of like interested in following guidelines that I have, doing a program that I've created, right? This is like a few years ago. So it's like pre me even launching it. It's just an ideation. And then everyone wants to kind of jump in and hold each other accountable and do it. And I'm like, okay, great. Yeah. Like, let's get going. Like, I'm here to help my friends whenever and always. And we kind of just created this little group, this like accountability group. I think it was via text or something, to kind of check in with each other. And because that's like part of the magic, right? Doing this stuff in community and having friends to hold you accountable and just to like touch base and ask questions. So we named this like text thread, Facebook group. I forget what it was, but we named it Healing Guts and Shaking Butts because we were at this house together and we were cooking all this amazing gut healthy food and we were like dancing around in the kitchen and sipping wine and all of that. So we kind of named it Healing Guts and Shaking Butts, and I thought that was hilarious. But when it came time to actually name my program that I would be like selling to the public, to people I don't even know that aren't my like best friends, I was like, this cannot be it. Like, this is not, people won't take me seriously if this is it. Like, people are going to think I'm cuckoo, like this is not, it's not professional enough, right? All of these like stories we make up. And then I was talking to my best friend, Sarah, and she was like, no, you definitely name your program this. And I was like, Sarah, this doesn't even make sense. Like, people are not like, because I want people to really understand that like I actually can help them. And I really know a lot about this, and if I throw in shaken butts, they're going to like be like, who is this girl? But anyway, I went with it, and it's funny because the feedback that I've gotten from it has been really good. Like, people really love it, and I think that I actually attract a certain type of client, of customer, of person to help that is looking for this to be like a fun experience, that is looking for this to be like community and sisterhood and not just this like, fluorescent lit office, like handout, like kind of like stale and vibe to things. And now I'm just like, I actually get feedback from some of the students because we do like an exit survey, and some of them are like, where was the dancing? Like, we want more of that, like we want to shake our butts. So I'm like, shoot, okay, let's do this, and dance is such a beautiful way to practice embodiment and freedom and self-expression and things like that. That is so like directly correlated to overall health and happiness. So yeah, that's like my long story short of how that really happened. And now this is like my signature program that is like our biggest, our biggest program that we have within my company, where we open it like 3 to 4 times a year and welcome in anywhere from 15 to like 35 students at a time and kind of walk them through the step-by-step process. And I really like just adding personality to it. And even though I was scared, like I was a little like, oh no, imposter syndrome, or like they're not going to take me seriously. I think it's really benefited the business, and people want that. They want that personality. They want to feel connected. They
Yeah.
want to. I love R&B too. Like we can connect in this way. So yeah, healing us.
Yeah.
Every time I get interviewed, I have to say it, and people are like, oh.
I love the name, and actually, yeah, I agree with that. A lot of times, like for me personally, I think I can stick to programs, or I can stick to um, diets, or I can stick to more like health related stuff whenever it's more fun for me. So
Yeah.
I love that you bring in this fun part to something that can be seen as super serious, right? As like healing your gut, and can be sometimes very scary because it's like super overwhelming. Like a lot of people is not 100% sure on what is gut health. So I think it's great that you are adding this part of fun to the program. I think that it must be making people easier for people to stick with the program.
Yeah, yeah, I think exactly. I mean, it can all be so serious, and especially, I honestly get a lot of very complicated cases. We work with a lot of women who have been dealing with like bad issues for 10 years. I've seen multiple specialists, multiple doctors, all that kind of stuff. So it feels really scary, and it feels really defeating, and there's like a negative energy around this, and we often then bring that energy into these interactions with our body. We start to like kind of feel the disconnect of our body. We don't even like our body, all of that stuff. So it's like, how can we, after years of feeling like we're battling it, right? So how can we add in a little lightness, like the energetics of this? How can we add in a little positivity and fun and lightness and joy into this experience? And I think a lot of people also see healthy eating, probably not this audience who's watching and listening to this, but a lot of people see healthy eating as kind of like a bore, or like, oh, that's so annoying. I can't like go drink the drinks and eat the things or whatever. And it really doesn't have to be that way. And it's gonna feel a lot easier when you just embrace the like good things about it, as opposed to harping on the fact that you've got to cook more at home and that's so annoying. Like we can turn it really into this positive, energizing, happy thing. And I think it's also really important to make sure that there is joy inserted into this process. So it's not just fear driven, and it's not
Yeah.
just like, all of that. It's like, and I have like there's a whole module in my course that's just like joy filled practices and stress management and things like that, because we've got to feel happy throughout this. We've got to feel excited throughout this. And I'll often ask it sounds so simple, but I'll often ask my one-on-one clients, like, if we're hitting a little, bump in the road, I'm like, when was the last time that you felt joy? And they're like, they can't even tell me, and I'm like, okay, so I need you to go get in your car, drive with those windows down, sing at the top of your lungs, like connect to that, like whatever that joy-filled practice is for you. That can be, something that's costs money, or it can be like totally free and you just jumping up and down in your living room, or driving in, and singing
Yeah.
your
I
lungs.
love it.
Yeah, but these things are just as important as taking the probiotic or drinking the waku or eating the food, right? So it's like health is holistic, and all of these things need to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I wanted to ask you, so for the program, how long does it last? How long is this program, and um, what can people expect to achieve at the end of the program? Like what type of people is targeted this program to?
Yeah, so we deal with mostly women, but we actually have a man in this last round as well. Like, I'm open to helping whoever. I just feel like I attract more women in general as a woman. But I'm here to help any and all people that need the help. But I would say mostly women who have been dealing with chronic digestive issues. So they've probably tried taking out gluten or sugar or dairy or something. Like they're not new to this process. They already eat a healthy diet. They may eat a healthy diet and feel like they still feel like crap. Their digestion still isn't working, and they may have tried an elimination diet before. They've probably seen one or two gastroenterologists. Sometimes women will come to us after seeing like four, and they are just given no answers. Right? Maybe they're told they have IBS. They just have to deal with it, eat more fiber, drink more water, that kind of thing. So this program isn't, it can be for the beginner. Sometimes we get some more beginners as well. But usually it's for the person who's kind of like been on this journey for a while and hasn't gotten any results. And then they come in and we really take a root cause approach. And, we have the advanced version of our program, which I think we're going to just move forward with only that version from now on. And that includes testing. We use functional stool testing to really identify like the root cause of what's going on, because there's always a cause of why you're not feeling like your best, right? It's not in your head, and it's not just stress. Stress absolutely plays a part, but a lot of these people that come to me have just been dismissed by other practitioners and professionals and just kind of told to do the low FODMAP diet or like drink more water. And they're kind of like, no, like this is more serious. Help me. And then they'll get something like a colonoscopy and they're told it looks fine, right? And that's great because that'll tell us if there's something very seriously wrong. But what happens when there's nothing found there and you're still bloated and constipated and burping and all of these things, or refluxy or whatever, then what? And that's kind of the woman or the person that we help. And they come into the program. We have it right now for 10 weeks. I'm always like kind of just evolving it and listening to the feedback from the students though. I can see it maybe going to 12 weeks in the future. But everyone comes in and gets support, like really consistent support for 10 weeks total. We've got a private group in there. I do live coaching sessions, Q&As. We've got pre-recorded video modules. And then I also have a registered dietitian on my team. Her name is Brooke Gasek, and she's amazing. And we really work together to get these people testing, customized protocols, all of that kind of stuff. So I really, like I said before, it's important to have support throughout this process and not just go in there and be like, here's a paper, follow the low FODMAP diet. And then you go home and the next 6 months, you're like, what, how am I, and then it's like, you're stressed and it wears on you mentally and emotionally. So we try to really offer consistent support and answer questions and be in there and motivate and all of that kind of stuff, to make it a very different experience.
And how has the program evolved since the first one that you did, that you mentioned that whenever you started to do it with a group of friends and it was more like a community driven and to have like more support as friends, how much different it is right now compared to the first one that you did?
Yeah, that's such a good question. It's honestly really amazing to think about that. When was that? It had to have been, I think we just had our eighth group of women join. So I've been doing it for that long. So it's got to be almost 2 years now. When I first started, I mean, it was very food focused, and honestly, people were feeling a heck of a lot better. Like we were getting some really amazing results and stories from these women. Almost everyone was feeling better. And then from there, we started to add on, more supplement recommendations and a more holistic approach to all of this and more support. And then we added on the testing. We didn't even have the testing until probably like 3 rounds ago or something like that. So I'm trying to think of the first time we did that. I don't even know. I mean, 2020 flew by, so I can't even remember. But there was no testing at first. There was no registered dietitian on my team. I also have a doctor of Oriental medicine on my team. She wasn't there initially. So we've really built it to hold more people and to get more people like really customized support as well. So we've really worked to combine the one-on-one and the personalization with the group community and support and coaching. Because I think I think you want both, right? You don't want to go through this just alone and just be talking to me and any of that. But you want to have that personalization, but you always also want the support in the community. So yeah, I mean, it's evolved so much. I feel like the first time I had it, outside of my friends, I think there were like 4 women that joined, and now it's like consistently 20 something people.
Oh,
So
that's amazing.
yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy to think about. And honestly, I have learned so much over these last few years about the business side of things, but honestly, it's continuing to learn about gut health and learn about how to really help these people. So, I think I
Yeah.
would look back on the first round and think it was so elementary compared to what information we have now and the results that these women really get now. But it's a good.
I I always love I always love listening to you because I learned a lot. I learn a lot every time I follow you on social media. So I love the content that you put out there.
Thank you.
It's always super interesting to keep learning more about gut health and how gut health affects the rest of our health. And I know that for you, it's been a long process of learning and testing and
Mhm.
experimentation that I know from reading your story that you started first doing all this research for yourself, right? And you started to do all this experimentation for yourself, kind of like you searching the solutions for the problems that you were facing at the beginning, right? Um, and from what I read from your story, I know that at the beginning, um, you tried a lot of different diets and programs whenever you were starting the journey. Um, and I know that for a lot of people, it can be sometimes dangerous, right?
Mhm.
Because there's so much bad advice out there, and there's so many kind of like fake gurus or uh, bad advice in general
Yeah.
regarding gut health or regarding diets. So my first question there was, what do you think is a very uh, maybe common bad advice that you've found along these years, like either you experimented them on yourself or with your customers? What have you found it's one of the most common um, mistakes or dangerous practices that people should be aware whenever they are starting this wellness journey and they want to get their gut health better or their diets or overall their health better? What should people be aware of whenever they are doing this research by themselves?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I could say so many things and take it in so many different directions. But I think the thing that's coming through the most is just being mindful of existing on too much restriction for too long. So within my program, we will have our students take out certain foods to kind of like promote, um, kind of push the needle a little bit more in the right direction. But no one should be like living on an elimination diet incredibly strictly for their entire lives, right? So this is also really big. Food is very powerful, and I will always stick by that. And it has the ability to really transform things. But there is a point where then we just start like really striving for this perfection. We start striving for, okay, well, if I just take out this food that's inflammatory and oxalates and FODMAPs and lectins and dairy and sugar and then we're left with nothing. Like we're left with nothing to eat, and we also are left with like an immense fear in the body in regards to actually eating these foods. And then along my journey, I was like, okay, so if I just maybe it's just the nightshades, then I'll take out all nightshades, which is like bell peppers and tomatoes and potato. Like these foods are healthy foods. There's different science on all of this stuff. Like you'll find science to contradict other science, and science is always evolving and transforming and all of that. So above all, you've got to listen to your body. And but I know along my journey and the people that I work with, it's very easy to chase this like perfectionism when it comes especially to diet, because we've been like inundated with diet culture of like eat this and then you're thin enough and then you're good enough and then all of that. And then we kind of have taken that and switched it into this like wellness culture that isn't necessarily about like weight, but it's still like, okay, so if I have one green juice and I have no sugar and I have this every single day, then I'll be healed, then I'll be enough. And that can get really dangerous. It can get really dangerous mentally, physically, emotionally. I mean, I was like deep in my journey.
Yeah.
I was like stopping, eating out with friends. I was like, I would go to parties and not eat anything. I was like, cook, it just, and then it gets really lonely, and you start to lose out on some of these joys. And I say this in balance with like food is important, and it's really important to eat healthy foods from the earth. Like we know that. But you have to be mindful of like when you're letting these decisions absolutely take over and control your life, because it'll never be perfect. You'll always go to eat at a restaurant
Yeah.
and they'll use some like canola oil. And like you can either never go out to a restaurant, or you can just eat it every once in a while and eat it at home, but kind of be mindful of it. Right. So I think that this topic I'm bringing up, it's kind of more of a mental emotional thing, but I consider mental and emotional health like right there with like physiology, right? Like they're both important and they influence each other. So I would say really being mindful of, if you're reading more and more books or listening to more and more podcasts that are just like take more foods out, it's also not good for you for your gut microbiome. Or gut microbiome loves diversity. With that being said, it doesn't need diversity from like, cookies and cakes. That's not the kind of diversity we're looking for. But also
Yeah.
one cookie is not going to wreck your health forever either, so it's looking for more plant diversity. This is one of the reasons why I think Waku is so cool, is because there's all of these like gorgeous plants in this one bottle. And that's really good for our gut microbiome. That's really good for our gut diversity, but along with all the other good things about it. But we don't want to take out all of these foods, especially like healthy foods. And that's what I see a lot of people doing as well when they're dealing with gut dysfunction and they have loads of food sensitivities or intolerances. They've taken out broccoli and avocado and apples and garlic and onions and all these things because they're like, I can't eat these. But if you can't eat those things, it's a sign that something's wrong. You're not meant to take those out forever and just live like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and what you said, I really like what you said, because I can totally relate to that. In the past, I've tried to follow a couple diets. In my case, it was more diets for gaining a little bit more weight. I was going more consistently to the gym, and I wanted to build like more muscle. But I did remember that my diet was very restrictive, so
Mm-hmm.
it made it very hard to follow, and that makes it very hard to become a lifestyle, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like you start following the diet, and probably at the beginning of the diet you are feeling like super optimistic and you have all the energy, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna take this out, this out, this out, this out. And then after the first week that you are doing like a very restrictive diet like that, it becomes so hard, because it's
Yeah.
like trying to change your lifestyle from day to night. And for me, what happened those couple of times was that I just completely stopped doing the diet, because it's just
Mm-hmm.
like it starts to feel so hard. And then whenever you um, eat a pizza one day, or it's just like a cake one day, you feel so bad, and you feel like, oh, I already failed. Like, what's the point of keep trying to do the diet if I already failed? So you just like, for me, it lasted like 2 weeks, and then I stopped doing that. So yeah, whenever you try this, I can see that becoming very hard, because this is something that my sister always tells me. And my older sister, she's a nutritionist, um, and whenever she's giving me some recommendations about diets, or what to eat, she always has told me to have an approach to food and diet uh, around like thinking of it as a lifestyle, right? Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's something that you have to build into your daily routines. And as you said, like listening to your body and listening to what your body responds well to, um, instead of just like following super strictly to a piece of paper that makes you feel bad whenever you don't follow it. So I
Yeah.
really like that approach.
Yeah, I just think it's so important because it's so easy to do the all or nothing, right? That's what most of us kind of like are more comfortable with. We're like all or nothing, and then that just reinstills this like cycle of guilt and shame when it inevitably ends because it's too much to manage. So this is why, people are like diets don't work. And it's always finding the balance, because I believe in listening to your body, and I believe in not really having such strict rigidity. And at the same time, there will always be a moment, like I always talk about, like pulling in the reins and letting out the reins. Like there will always be a moment where your body is really asking you, like, hey, it's time to cook more at home. We got to dish the alcohol. We got to do the thing. We got to really like pull in the reins a little here, because we've been maybe traveling a lot, or we've been whatever. Maybe we're moving, or maybe just life got really hard and busy. So your self-care kind of like went out the window a little bit more than normal. So in that moment, it's like, okay, cool. Like instead of like hating yourself and shaming yourself and having to like jump into 100%, it's like finding the balance of doing that in a way to support you. But also there will always be times when it's like, okay, if I have this gut issue, like it's time to like eat more of these foods and maybe like crowd some of these foods out. And then there will be a time in your life where you're on like a gorgeous vacation with your loved ones, and you are like drinking a margarita and eating the tortilla chips with all the dips, and like that's fine too. And then it's like embrace that experience, you know. So there's always, and only you'll know when that time really comes, right, to kind of like loosen the reins or pull them in a little bit. But always looking, you know, I'm at the point in my life now, and this is where I aim to get my students, where my foundation is very supportive and healthy. So I don't need to go on a diet anymore. I don't need to restrict myself and go on like a juice cleanse or a fast or something like that, because even on vacation and when traveling and when whatever things get busy, my foundation is solid. I'm still going to get my exercise in. I'm usually going to sleep unless things are really crazy. I'm still going to get in my veggies, my morning power smoothie. Like these are just part of who I am. So I uphold this like certain like foundation, so I don't need to go to that 0 or 100. I can have the salad with veggies and salmon and have a margarita, and then I can just feel, then I don't need to go, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? It's like maintaining these foundations.
Hey, just a quick pause for a message from Waku, and we will be right back to the interview. We are very excited to let everyone know we've just launched Waku's crowdfunding equity campaign through Republic, a platform that allows anyone to invest in private startups like Waku. Waku is now part of a very exclusive group of highly vetted startups from Republic, and now you can become an investor of Waku starting with investments as small as $100. If you'd like to learn more about why to invest in Waku and why this is such a great investment opportunity, you can go to republic.co/Waku. That's republic.co/WAKU. We will be thrilled to have you join us in our journey to bring to the world the most refreshing herbal tea with gut health benefits and help to create impact in the livelihoods of hundreds of Ecuadorian farmers. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, and this brings me to my next question, and is if you can tell us a little bit more about your personal journey on how did gut health became so important in your life. I know that, for example, a lot of questions that a lot of my friends usually have is that they have heard that gut health is very important, but a lot of times people can think that, oh, I don't have a very serious digestive issue.
Yeah.
So they think that gut health maybe is not a problem for them.
Yeah.
So first, how do you know that you need a better digestive health, or how do you know that you're having gut health issues? And if you can share a little bit more on like how was your personal journey, and how did you start it? Because like to get to it will be amazing that all of us can get to that level, right? And it can feel a bit overwhelming, I would say, like to see like, okay, Hannah is like at this, her base is so healthy and it's amazing that she can achieve that, and some people may be at the beginning of their journey and feel that achieving that can be impossible. So first, how can someone know if they are having gut health issues? Like and how was the journey for you?
Yeah, great questions. And it's funny because even after I finished saying what I was just saying, like I wanted to say this it wasn't always that way, right? Like that wasn't always the way for me. And I always, whenever I teach my classes, I'm like, you guys, like I was not born this like gut health coach, like that ate well and did all the things and took my probiotic every night. Like I used to, I mean, as a child, it was like king size Reese's every single day, like 32-ounce Coke Slurpees, like every day. I mean, how I was even allowed to eat these things, I'm not sure. It's interesting because my father would try to kind of like uphold some rules of like no sugary cereal and no soda in the house. But like my mom would be like, yeah, whatever, like just go buy that. So it's like we couldn't have Coke, but we could have like like Gushers, like I don't know. It was a little inconsistent, I'll say. So I was not like it was like spicy chicken taquitos from 7-Eleven. Like, are those even food? Like that's what I had been consuming for a while. And so it wasn't always just this way. And it wasn't a huge focus in our family either. You know, there was a lot of like kind of convenience stuff. It could have been worse, I think, but there was just like, you know, busy family, like 2 parents that are entrepreneurs and 3 kids and all in different schools. So it's like, eat what's there, a toaster strudel. Okay. You know? So it really wasn't always that way. And when I initially got into it, when I started looking at diet initially of like, okay, what am I eating? It was really just to control the size of my body. Like that's the honest truth. It was only to like be thin, be skinny, because I was inundated with these messages of if I'm in this thin body, then I'm good enough, then I'm lovable, and then people will love me, right? There was a lot of conditioning from my parents, from society, from all of these things. And also I'll just say like I'm in a thin body today and I've always been in a thin body. So it wasn't like it's a very mental thing. Like it's just like there was a lot of self-hatred in this poor body. And sometimes I gotta just hug this little girl. So it really started to just be like thinner, right? I was like, I want a flat stomach. I want a flat stomach because all my friends had one and I didn't. And I didn't understand that. And I thought that would make people like me and love me more, right? And I had been given some messages of like Hannah, you're so beautiful. If you lost 15 pounds, you could be a model, and some of these like awful messages that I got as a little girl. So I just jumped from diet to diet to diet to diet, really trying to control the size of my body. And then I found, really my dad was the first person to introduce to me the concept of eating well, not just to lose weight, but to feel better. So that was really my dad, because he kind of took on this like alkaline diet when my parents were going through a divorce, because he was like, so much is out of my control right now. I've got to take care of myself to like be able to handle this. And it made him more resilient. It made him happier. He was like glowing. And my dad was like the dad at my volleyball tournaments where the dads are like, we're at TGI Fridays and everyone's drinking beers. And my dad's like eating a salad with lemon juice and olive oil and like not drinking alcohol. And because his life was too difficult at that point. He was like, if I don't feel well and I can't think clearly and see clearly with everything going on, I'm going to crumble, you know? So that was kind of the first like time I got to see that of like, whoa, this isn't really, my dad's not like on a diet to like get a 6-pack, you know, he's kind of, it's helping him manage life better. So that was kind of the first time like that I had that influence. And then I'd say after years of just like honestly deep inner self-hatred and jumping from diet to diet to diet, I really wore on my system. I really wore on my gut. Like it adds so much stress to the body. And I started to get a lot of digestive issues. It started to be like I couldn't eat sweet potatoes, apples. I was like always bloated. I was terrified to eat certain foods because I didn't want to be bloated for the rest of the day. I had also lost a ton of weight. Like it was a really like tumultuous journey to get me to the point where I finally read this book by Dr. Alejandro Younger. He's like an amazing functional medicine doctor. And he was talking all about the gut microbiome. And I was like, wait, this is really cool. Like there's a lot more going on here. This impacts how you feel, how you think, how, you know, much more than just your weight. Like it impacts your immunity. It impacts your hormones, your skin, all of these things. And that's when I finally started to turn a corner and was like, wait, there's so much more here. Like I've been looking at just like how my body looks, but I haven't been tapping into how my body feels and how I feel. And then I really
Mm.
started eating better foods, kind of working through some of this like inner work and restriction, and my mood changed. The biggest thing that changed for me was my mood. Like I was happier. I was so much happier. I was more present. I was less irritable. I was less reactive. And then of course
Yeah.
like skin was glowing and all of that kind of stuff too. But it really impacted my mood. And I had kind of done some damage to myself after years of restriction. And then I kind of had to figure out, okay, now what do I do? What's going on with my gut now? And how do I view this a different way than just like a diet, right? But how do I kind of get to the root cause of this and really repair some of this damage that I've kind of done to myself. But also there were tons of antibiotics from doctors, along the road and all of that kind of stuff, loads of stress, loads of all that. I used to have really bad migraines as a little girl. So it was like, it was not oh great. It was like oh my gosh, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? I kind of hate
Yeah.
myself. This is working. It's not like, and then it finally got to the point where I was really interested in viewing this in a more holistic way. And I was like, wait, my happiness is important in this. Like I and really working through that like controlling and perfectionism that was within me to try to control the outcome and control what I looked like and all of that stuff. And it all influences your gut because it influences
Yeah.
the system. It influences your stomach acid levels, your inflammation, your gut lining. Like it influences like the physiology, right? Like the stress physiology and pathology will start to wear at that gut lining. It'll make you more susceptible to gut infections, it'll create dysbiosis, it'll wear at that immune system. So even, if you're running around and this is resonating with you and you're like, whoa, I'm feeling some of this too. I've jumped from diet to diet, or I don't even think I really like my body or whatever. Like that internal turbulence creates physical issues. So it's, that's not to fear it or need to then go control that, but it's just something to be mindful of. And so that's kind of a little bit about my story. And then I would say for people to know that they have a gut issue, the gut it's traced back to like 90% of disease. So honestly, almost anything you should look at your gut, whether it's anxiety, depression, acne, eczema, psoriasis, heartburn, acid reflux, constipation, diarrhea, bloating. But you really shouldn't feel bloated every day. Like some people, there's also been this kind of social media like trend to like be like it's normal, and a little bit of it is normal. It's normal after you go out and eat some pizza and drink some beers, yeah, but it's not normal to feel every single day. So that's a big sign too. I think a lot of people just normalize this and think like, oh well, it's not too bad or it's not anything super serious, but it can lead to something more serious down the line. So you do want to really take
Yeah.
a look.
Yeah. And so important what you just said, Hannah. And I really resonate with that approach of controlling what you can control, right? Whenever you are uh, that approach you mentioned that your dad had, whenever you
Mhm.
are going through something very challenging in your life, and whenever you are going through difficult moments in your life, uh, the fuel that we are putting into our body, it's something that it's a lot of the times it's under our control.
Mhm.
Um, and we can control that input, right? And it can make such a big difference.
Mhm.
I am a I think that's how I operate in general in my life, because like of, of course you know this, but as an entrepreneur there are so many things that you can't control, right?
Yes.
um, and so many things that are coming into your way that you can just like literally don't do nothing about it. But um, you do control what you eat, you do control how much sleep you get, you can control how much you prioritize yourself, I guess. So whenever we are experiencing these or going through these very difficult times in our lives, um, I love this way of seeing food that, okay, food can be an anchor for me.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
am not doing this diet or this new fad that I just found, as you said, to just like look skinnier or look more muscular.
Yeah.
I am having food as an anchor. That's anything can be happening right now, and right now the world is still so crazy with COVID and
Yeah.
all. There's so many things we can't control, right? Um, but I really loved what you said on just like seeing food as an anchor. It's like, okay, this is what just like grounding me, and this is what like helping my body to cope with all the uncertainty. So it's super important what you just said. I loved it.
Yeah, it can be such an ally if we let it be, and I would say I know I work with a lot of people who have kind of like complicated relationships with food because so many of us have been inundated with this like you got to look this certain way to be lovable and worthy and enough and all of that. So it's almost like we have to also dig deeper a little bit of like what's behind the and fueling how we even view food, right? And like, are we viewing this? What's our intention behind this? Are we using this to feel energized and happy and take care of ourselves, or are we using this as a way to kind of like shame ourselves into something else? But a lot of people have kind of complicated relationships with food, and I just want to acknowledge that and honor that. Some people feel like out of control with it, right? And I've been there too. I mean, there was a period of my life where it was very much restriction, binging. Like I'll never forget. For some reason, this moment like sticks in my mind of like, I was on some diet. I'm on like Tim Ferriss's 4-hour body diet or something. I mean, goodness gracious. And I'm restricting all of these things. And no shame on Tim Ferriss. He's got a lot of good work. But I'm like 16 and I'm doing this, and I'm like waking up and comparing my thighs in the mirror every morning. And it's just like awful and toxic. And I'm taking all these foods out, and then I'm like binge eating a tub of cashews that night because like cashews are healthy fat, right? And then I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna puke. I like just ate way too much for my body, and then I'm like, I feel so much guilt and shame that then I'm at the gym and I'm running 6 miles to try to burn it off. And it's like at that moment of my life, like I did not feel in control of that, and it wasn't even about the food. It was like about what I was making the food mean, and that's something that I try to talk to my clients about as well. Whereas now I don't really think about that or feel that as much. Like I don't really feel the need to control the size of my body as much or whatever. And the irony is that once you just make peace with it and you work on like the more inner work, the relationship with food gets easier. Like I never thought I could get to the point where I didn't overthink everything that I ate. And now I almost have to remember to eat because it's just like not top of mind. And I'm like busy pursuing my dreams and like living and passionately and things like that. So it's interesting. There's always another layer to it as well. But I think that if we can reframe it to use food as this anchor, to use it as this tool, and to look at it not in, like I feel so much anger towards diet culture because it's like the first time I even looked at what I was eating, it was only to control the size of my body. It was not to keep me disease free or make me feel better and happier and more energized and sleep better. And I wish that I had that time back because I would have just viewed it differently and used it as a tool to support me as opposed to using it as this tool to kind of like keep me on this like leash, right? Of like control and all of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
And where do you think someone can start? Like, okay, if someone is listening right now and currently they don't have a healthy relationship with food, or they've been into one of these crazy diets and they are feeling just awful. Um, what do you think can be some first baby steps that someone can take to start making this shift in
Yeah.
your head?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would immediately get rid of any messaging that is connecting what you eat to your weight specifically. Like you will almost never hear me use the word weight when I'm talking about gut health, even though your gut health is going to impact your weight and all of that. We see different gut bacteria in like obese people and things like that, and your gut bacteria can can like actually extract different amounts of calories from your food. So there are like connections there, but get rid of this messaging of like macros and calories for weight and all of that, because there's so much more to the picture. There's hormones, there's thyroid function, there's metabolism, there's all of that. And I would crowd out that noise and like get rid of anyone that's like not in that viewpoint with you and not supporting that. So if you're following these people on social media platforms that just like you look at and they make you feel shameful and they make you feel envious of their body or whatever, like just get rid of that for a moment, and then just really start simply. Like start with the foundations and the basics. It doesn't have to be so complicated at the beginning. Start with just more whole foods from the earth, right? Food is ingredients. It doesn't contain loads of ingredients. So start just adding in. And if this is very new to you, then you start one meal at a time, right? And you don't have to overhaul everything at once. Like just adjust your breakfast. Like start making a smoothie and or whatever you want. Like that's more comprised of more whole foods, and make sure you're enjoying it along the way and noticing your little wins, right? That's another thing that many of us don't do. We're like, oh, I didn't do this 100%. When it's like, listen, if you were at 0%, doing it 20% is better than 0%. So it's still progress, So noticing those little things and just sticking with like more whole foods from the earth, whether it's animal-based foods, plant-based foods, these things are generally speaking going to be more healthy, and stay away from foods that are labeled as like diet anything. Because that's also like subconsciously influence like what you're thinking about these foods. And then I would say, just notice like the feelings in your body that are coming up around when you're eating and around, what you're thinking about your body, and just trying like having the courage to really explore that, because it's not always fun, and it's not always like really, happy and all of that, but kind of just sitting with that and letting yourself feel whatever's coming up. And yeah, I could get into like a whole lot of gut health foundations and things like that. But if you're really struggling with your relationship with food, start simply and have a lot of compassion for yourself.
What are some I think that also it's super important whenever you're starting a journey like this, that first you stop listening to the bad advice, but also it's super important to start like filling your mind with the right type of messaging, right? So I know that, for example, for me it's super helpful to be following you on social media, because the type of content that you put out there is super helpful. So I'm gonna put on the show notes, of course, the link to your social media for people to be able to follow you as well. But what other accounts or what other people do you follow that people can start listening to? Because I know that whenever you start a process, and basically this is just like, I think how our minds work in general, is that until you internalize a truth, it's gonna be very hard to get fully into it, right? So it can take a long time, and it can take like multiple times listening to different people talking about like a healthy message, right? Because we've grown and we've been inundated for our whole lives from from this rhetoric of like diet culture and like focusing on your body a lot. So it can take a while to just like release your mind from that, and start putting in the right voices into your head, right? So for you, what people has been very useful to listen to, or books that you've read that can help you start shifting that perspective?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I've always learned from Dr. Mark Hyman. He's like a leading functional medicine doctor in the space. He was like really at the beginning of my journey. And then of course, Dr. Alejandro Younger, who I mentioned earlier, he's actually, I believe, a cardiologist. He was working in the hospitals, and he found himself, I think when he was going through his rotation or whatever, feeling actually really depressed and like feeling really inflamed and really unhappy. And then he was like prescribed these medications, and he was like, I'm supposed to be a doctor. Like I'm supposed to, like, what's going on here? These things aren't even working for me. Right. And that's when he started to really see and look through look at health through a different viewpoint, a more functional root cause, holistic viewpoint. So everyone that goes this route has their own version of the story, right? Like, and which is always amazing as well. I also love Dr. Robin Berzin. She owns Parsley Health, and I worked for them for a period of time when I was in New York. And they're very functional medicine root cause approach as well. And then there's a lot of amazing doctors out there, a lot of naturopathic doctors and things like that. And then there's also, I usually jive with the message from nutrition therapy practitioners. That's not a training that I've gone through myself, but they really learn the foundations of just like how digestion works and whole foods. And it's not this like diety approach to things. So you can find tons of those people, Facebook pages, Instagram, websites, all the things. People have podcasts. And then I would say the people that are really inspiring me right now, one of them, her handle is like Hormone Healing RD. She talks a lot about hormones, thyroid, gut, and through the lens of like nourishment, making sure that you have enough, right? So not taking these things out, but actually making sure that you have enough of these things in your diet to really support you. And I even personally to this day like to see those messages more because they support me more, and I find that it supports my clients as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I'm gonna make sure to put these on the show notes so people can check those accounts out.
Yeah.
And me myself, I'm gonna just like start following them as well,
Yeah.
because it's so important to have these, right, to have like on your social media, on like what you are feeding your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's super important because that's gonna shape your decisions, right?
Yes. Yeah, I know. If you were to look at my Instagram, it's like not clothes or like nails or anything like that. It's like doctor, 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 doctor. That's like, and then like registered dietitian, nutrition. But that's my jam. I mean, this is the stuff I love it so much, and I learn a lot from it. And I invest in programs all the time to learn more about this stuff and do trainings and all of that. So yeah, it's funny because these are like my celebrities. I'm like not interested in like the Kardashians. I want to meet like Dr. Mark Hyman.
Yeah. And currently, Hannah, how is your current routine? Like, because you mentioned that right now you feel that your baseline is very healthy and it's very supportive of you. So can you tell us a little bit more on like how does that look like? What type of routines do you have in the morning, or what are some of the things that, as you said, even that you do even if you are traveling or even if you are not at home, uh, even though you are still doing those things every day that are currently supporting you?
Yeah. Yes. So I would say I really try to I start my day with getting enough sleep. Like getting enough sleep is very important to me. It's definitely been more erratic over like 2020 definitely like threw off everything a little bit. So that's been a little bit of a struggle, but I would say like I almost always get 8 hours, if not 8.5. It's super important. Your brain like rinses around cerebral spinal fluid. It's like your lymphatic system that helps you detoxify and drain. And so it's very important for your overall health, and sleep is so important for so many things, but it's like one of our drainage pathways, right? So I really try to prioritize enough sleep. If you don't get enough sleep, you're going to be in like a more insulin resistant state the next day as well, which is just going to leave you feeling crappy. So I really try to prioritize that. I wake up. I have my little routine. I like take my temperature because I track my cycle. So I'm not on on a hormonal form of birth control or anything like that. So I take my temperature, which also gives me good insight into my metabolism, how my thyroid may be functioning, because your body temperature shifts a little bit, and you can see these different ranges can kind of give you some insight. So if mine is lower than I want it to be, I know my body is like experiencing a little extra stress, like something's going on.
Huh.
Yeah, so it kind of gives some cool tools. And then of course I can tell like what part of my cycle I'm in. And I'm not an expert in this. I would not go teaching this. I actually invested in a coach to help me learn about this because I wanted to get it right. So we all do it all the time. We all sign up for programs all the time. We're constantly learning. I always say coaches have coaches, but But yeah, so I start with that really, which I guess is kind of part of my health routine. And then I always have, like, I've got my water here. Like, you'll see this with me in almost every video. I drink the whole thing. I think it's like 26 ounces. And I put in, right now I'm using Cellcore CT Minerals. So it's a mineral complex that also has humic and fulvic acid. So I put 10 drops of that inside my water to really rehydrate. And then I love my
Hmm.
coffee. I have my coffee, and I always have my morning bowel movement. That's important too. And that just helps you feel better, but really important for gut health to make sure that that's happening, and important for hormonal health, because you'll get excess estrogen if we're not actually using the bathroom properly. Like, unresolved gut issues will become adrenal and hormonal issues. So it's
Mm.
important to kind of just like keep track of these things. Like, if you're noticing that you're not using the bathroom every day, something's kind of, it's a little red flag that's like, okay, what's going on? Let's dig deeper. So yeah, I do those things. I always get in my exercise. Like, this morning I walked for about 30 minutes, and then I did a little 20-minute strength training video. I used to run a lot more, but it's kind of a lot on my body. So, with my stress levels and being an entrepreneur, I was just finding it's like I'm too revved up. So I started walking more,
Yeah.
doing more like relaxing exercise and some strength training. I always get in a good sweat. It makes me feel so much better. Like, my brain clarity and energy is so much better. And then I have almost always I have my
Yeah.
Hamburger power smoothie. So it's in my 3-day gut reset. There's like a few recipes in there, and it's a combination of protein, fiber, healthy fat, greens, an unprocessed carbohydrate to really stabilize my blood sugar levels, make sure I have even energy for the day. Promote like feeding my good gut bugs, so promote gut proliferation and things like that. That's kind of like my little routine. And even when I'm traveling, I really try to prioritize sleep, and I try to I always have little snacks. Like, I'll bring my greens powder,
Yeah.
and I'll bring my protein powder, so I can throw it in a water bottle, or I can throw it in, if I have a chocolate protein powder, I can even throw it in like a coffee at the coffee shop. I'll always have a few of these little things with me. I'll always have like an Epic bar, or a grass-fed like beef jerky bar, or some like nuts and seeds, or you'll see me like with half an avocado in my purse. So there's always
I love it.
there's always some things like that, that I bring these things with me. Like, I'm traveling tomorrow actually, and I'll bring a few snacks with me. I'll have my supplements with me and things like that. And yeah,
Got it. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah,
From all the things that you mentioned, I think the one thing that I've recently added to my routine, probably like a couple months already, but it's the morning smoothie that I learned in your 3-day gut reset program.
yeah,
It's so good because it's like super tasty, but
yeah,
I feel that it really makes such a difference in the levels of energy that I have during the day,
yeah,
because I remember that before doing that, my breakfast was more. Normally, I had like huge breakfasts, so having like two fried eggs and with toast and with ham and with cheese and
hmm,
with orange juice, and I feel that my body needed so much energy to be digesting
yeah,
that amount of food early in the morning. Of course, I love that. For me, my favorite food of the day is breakfast, and
hmm,
I that's also my favorite meal to cook. So I do amazing breakfasts.
love that.
But on the weekdays, I've stopped doing those such huge breakfasts because I did notice a big difference in the levels of energy that I was feeling during the day.
Yeah,
So on the weekdays, I do the one of these smoothies
I love it.
that are in the 3-day gut reset program, that I add fruits, I add greens, I add peanut butter, so it's like super good. And I save the huge big breakfast for the weekends. I still do them because I just like love them. It's so good to have a huge breakfast. Uh, but I still do them over the weekends because I know that on the weekends I'm not looking to have like that much energy during the mornings. Like, I get to be more chilled and relaxed during the
Yeah,
weekend. Uh, but it really made a difference in the amount of energy levels that I was feeling in the mornings. Like, I remember that I used to need uh, always to drink like 2 or 3 cups of coffee every morning
mm,
to just like get my brain like working.
yeah,
I'm not a morning person, so it was very hard that. and literally, like, I needed, like, if I needed my brain to be just like on, I needed, as soon as I was gonna start working, 2 or 3 cups of caffeine.
Yeah.
And of course that gives you a lot of anxiety during the day.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
used to get sometimes, like, moreover, whenever I overdid the caffeine, and I don't know, I just like drank 4 cups or 5 cups, I started to
Wow.
just like shake a little bit, and
Yeah.
I started to have like persecution anxiety, and I thought everybody was just like falling down, and it was really affecting my sleep. um, so and I think this was for me one of the one of these like limiting beliefs, I think, that I just like had throughout my whole life, that I was like, okay, I'm not a morning person, and the only way I can get energy is through caffeine.
Yeah.
And I need to be productive, so I'm just gonna deal with it. And I love the taste of coffee, so
Yeah.
it was not like an issue for me. But I noticed a lot whenever COVID was starting, and things were starting to get like super hard with the business, and there was so much anxiety out there,
Yeah.
that I started to feel like a lot of anxiety inside me, and I was having trouble sleeping. And
Yeah.
I realized that once I stopped depending on caffeine to give me energy and make me feel more like clear headed, the levels of anxiety dropped significantly. So
Beautiful.
it has made like such a difference for me to, in the morning, start with something as healthy as this power smoothie. Uh, and now I do drink like 1 cup of coffee in the morning, just because I like the taste of coffee.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel I don't need it anymore to feel energized. So that shift made a huge difference for me.
I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah,
Yeah,
like that makes me so happy. It's interesting because the body will tell you, right? Like what you may be able to get by with the 3 cups of coffee when like everything's fine, and then COVID hits and there's like all of this like everything's up in the air, and then you're reacting to just 1 cup, right? So it's like the body ebbs and flows, and having that connection to your body
yeah,
to really be able to like listen and be like, okay, maybe this isn't really supporting me right now. I'm going to switch something here. I'm going to come back on this, you know? Like I could feel it even today. I started drinking my coffee and I'm leaving town tomorrow, and I've got, things are up in the air for me. So it's like a few sips of my coffee and I'm already feeling like I don't really need the rest of this. Right. And then there are some days where I'm like drinking the whole thing, and that's fine. But that body connection is also really beautiful too, and to witness. And I know
yeah,
very well. Usually the coffee doesn't make me too anxious, but sometimes it does. Like around a launch when I'm a little wired and like I'm enrolling all these women into my program and I'm kind of like working nonstop, I don't need as much of it then. You would think you want it to like be on, but I'm running
yeah,
on stress hormones, so I don't need that caffeine on top of that. So it ebbs and
yeah.
flows, right?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Thank you so much, Hannah. I know that we can keep talking
Yeah.
hours and hours about this. I love always speaking with you. But I think to start wrapping up, where can people connect with you, and where can people start just like learning more about how they can kickstart their wellness journey and their gut health journey?
Yes, I think a great place is probably my Instagram, which I even like I roll a little at, but probably my Instagram because I'm on it a lot and I talk to women in my community all the time on there. I do like live Q&As, I do live like educational sessions, things like that. So probably there, which is my handle is just my first and last name and then HHC for holistic health coach. So it's just Hannah Aylward HHC. And that's probably a great place because I put out a lot of content there. Like there's so many IGTV videos, there's so many educational reels. Like I said, I do like a weekly Q&A. So it's a great place to kind of get started. And then you could also always jump in on my 3-day gut reset. This is like totally free. It's 3 days of information, really yummy recipes just to get you started, right? And I'm not here to sell you that like all your gut issues are going to go away in 3 days, right? Like if you've been struggling for a long time, you're going to need more deeper work than that. I'm not in the game of like, take this apple cider vinegar gummy and it'll all go away, right? Like that's not, we take a more very much like much more in-depth approach, but it's a good place to start. It's a good place to start if you want to bring one thing in and try the smoothie and things like that. And that's available. You can get it on my Instagram. You can also get it on my website. My website is just hannahaylward.com. So those are probably great places to start.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. I really like having you here. Thank you for coming today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I know we could talk for forever. I get so excited talking about all this.
Yeah, I love that. I love the energy. All right, Hannah. Talk to you soon, hopefully.
Yes, all right, sounds good. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. This is Nico again, and just a few more things before you take off. If you'd like to be part of the Waku tribe to be the first one to know about the launch of exclusive flavors, special promotions, and content about health and wellness, just go to livewaku.com, that's livewaku.com, and sign up for our email list. And if you sign up, I hope you enjoy being part of our community.